So the season only finished on Sunday, and yet we're already set to make our first signing of the window. Now that sounds good, but in reality, we all knew this one was coming. That being Daniel Cummings from Celtic, the striker joining at the end of his Celtic contract on the 1st of July. But this is one we've talked about since January. We knew we obviously tried to make a bid for him in January to bring him sooner to the club. Celtic refused that. I don't think they were happy too much about the way the deal unfolded and the talks between us and Cummings, and therefore refused any type of transfer fee. And we've obviously gone down the free transfer route. Now, I say free transfer. Obviously, there's going to be some kind of compensation for his age. I think about 250, 300k. And there will be signing on fees, your usual agent fees. But it will go down as a free transfer. And like I say, joining on the 1st of July. So the first signing or confirmed signing of this window, we've got the here we go from Fabrizio Romano. So like I say, it will be very, very much confirmed soon. So in these videos, I want to just go into the player in a little bit more detail. Mark and X will provide some insights and intel in terms of the players we're in talks with. Obviously, we're going to be linked with so many players this summer. So the players that we are in advanced talks with, maybe we've already signed, maybe we're about to sign. I actually just want to, do a video and just look at them in a bit more detail, find out what we can about them, and sort of suggest where they'll fit into the club. So this being the first of that, Daniel Cummings, age 19, he's turned 19 in April. Obviously, he's still very young. This is clearly a signing for the future and not for the now. Height-wise, he's just shy of 6'1", so he's at a decent height for the Premier League in terms of playing up front and sort of dealing with centre-halves and that kind of stuff. Obviously Scottish, right-footed, and I think only really has played centre-forward in his career. I don't think he's one of those that has played on the left, one playing on the right, from what I could see. In terms of his stats, now, you have to take stats with a pinch of salt because we know we've signed plenty of strikers in the past with crazy goal records, and then they come to the Premier League and they can't hit a barn door. That is often the case because it is a lot harder to score goals in the Premier League than it is any other, even other top leagues, let alone the Lowland League, which is where Cummings scored a lot of his goals, which I think is around the 5th or 6th tier of Scottish football. Coming for Celtic B, and he scored 23 goals in 28 games, which is still a very good record, no matter what level you're playing at. It's a good goal return. He's also scored 6 goals in 7 games in the UEFA Youth League, which maybe holds a little bit more prestige. So overall, he's got 29 goals in 37 games. Again, very good goal record. He's got 3 caps for Scotland under-19s, and he actually made his debut for the first team this season, or last season, I should say. I think it was against Aston Villa in the Champions League. He only played 11 minutes. They lost the game anyway, so there was not too much to gain from that. But coming on to make your debut in the Champions League is obviously a big moment for him. So in terms of his strengths, from what I can see, I'm not going to pretend that I've watched him live. I've been scouting him. This is what I can see online. He's a player that plays on the shoulder. He's very much that striker that runs in behind, playing on the shoulder, playing on that last man. He can score goals with both feet. So the goal record that he's got that have come from his right foot, left foot. He's scored a couple of headers as well, a few from distance. So he's definitely got the full range of finishing, if you like. I think that is probably one of his biggest strengths is how adept he is at finishing. He seems like a little bit of a fox in the box, a little bit of a, dare I say, Danny Ings or Jermaine Defoe, that kind of striker who definitely spends most of his time within the width of the 18-yard box. And I think from what I saw, his biggest strength was his first time finishing. You see, I'd say probably 60, 70, maybe an 80% of his goals were first time finishes in the box, him finding a position, getting the ball cut back from a teammate and just hitting it first time, not taking a touch, hitting it first time, like I say, right foot or left foot. And he's very adept at that. The way he presses the ball, the way he finishes the ball, he's obviously got a lot of skill in that regard. And that is probably why Celtic regarded him quite highly and really didn't want to lose him. So they're the biggest strengths I could see. Like I say, I like the fact he plays on the shoulder. We definitely need someone in that area who is willing to do that. He's got a bit of pace about him. I wouldn't say he's particularly rapid, but he's got a bit of pace. He's agile, if you like. He can move. And like I say, he's a good finisher. All his goals are pretty good finishes. He's not really scored too many. They are, I wouldn't say they're tap-ins, but they're in the box, but they're good finishers, if you see what I mean. So I do think he's good in that regard. Weaknesses, obviously, when you score so many goals with first time finishing, you are very much reliant on the service. And Celtic B, you would expect to be one of the strongest teams in their league, and therefore his team's gonna have a lot of the ball and going to provide him with a lot of chances, and therefore hence his goal record. So you are reliant on the service. This is not someone that I believe to be a striker that has particularly made goals all on his own, where the team penned in defensively. They've just launched one upfield, and he's done a bit of an Antonio, if you like, held a player off and scored a goal. He doesn't feel like that kind of striker. He does seem like he's reliant on service, and we've seen this season that service is not something that we've provided a lot of this season, or last season, I should say. And that as well comes into his sort of hold-up play. Again, I don't want to say he's lacking in that regard, because I haven't seen him too often. The footage I've seen is mainly his goals, mainly his strength. So I wouldn't say he lacks in that regard, but physically and his sort of experience of being able to be a striker that can come short to the ball, just bring players into the game, make clever runs just to aid his teammates, rather than thinking about just directly going towards goal. So again, that's stuff that you probably need to work on, but that goes for every young striker, really. I think even you look at Daniel Cummings, who was obviously our latest sort of young striker coming through. He definitely had to finesse his game and become adept at that, and learn how to be a striker in the Premier League, be a number 9, and it definitely is something that you have to learn and get better at. So I do think that will come naturally, but I'd say at this point that's probably a weakness of his from what I've seen. And then the biggest one is he physically ready in the Premier League? I'll talk about where I think he'll fit in, but a big part of that will be if he's physically ready to be able to play in the Premier League. You can score goals at any level, but coming into the Premier League and being able to get yourself in those positions by running off of the likes of Virgil van Dijk, for example, he's obviously at the extreme because he's the best defender in the league, arguably. So he's not going to have to play against that every week. But there's definitely a question to be asked: is he physically ready to play in the Premier League? Like I say, he's not rapid, so he can't just overly rely on his pace. So he's going to have to learn and bulk out a little bit, as all strikers do, particularly as they get older and when they come in quite young. So those are question marks that I would definitely put him at this stage. But like I say, this is from what I've seen online, which is fairly limited. So where he'll fit in is probably the biggest question. I would be very surprised if we saw him in a West Ham first team shirt next season. He's not played a lot of football, hardly at all, for the Celtic first team. So if he's not good enough to play in the Scottish Premier League, I doubt he's good enough to play in the English Premier League. So whether we'll see him too much next season, I very much doubt. I actually see him maybe going on loan to a Championship or League One club, or potentially just playing for the under-23s. So it'll be interesting to see what the club do with him, where Potter sees his sort of development. Obviously, we haven't had a striker coming through since Daniel Cummings, and I think that's definitely been a void sort of in the team, something we've lacked, because sometimes, particularly when you've got injuries like we have this season to our strikers, sometimes it's good to just chuck a youngster in and just say, go on, there's nothing really riding on this game. We're playing awful. We're 17th in the league. We're not going down. Go on, just see what you can do. Give him some experience. So I think that it would have been nice to have him last season to see a little bit more of him. But whether we'll see too much of him next season, I think remains to be seen. Mubama is someone that we didn't loan out, and I think that was a mistake. I think we should have done to get that sort of first-team football for him, to hone his skills a little bit, finesse his game, get that experience. He didn't get that, and then we ended up losing him on a free transfer and since gone on to Manchester City. But anyway, this is about Daniel Cummings. I think it's a fairly exciting one, not one that's going to be, it's not a £30 million signing, which we can see him on the opening day of next season. But I think he'll one that will pop up now and again next season, and we'll see a little bit of him, and hopefully, he can impress us in those few occasions. Or if he goes out on loan, hopefully he has a good season in the Championship or League One. So yeah, this is the first signing of the window, Daniel Cummings, and let's see how he does up the Hammers.